And I would like you to share with us if you think USAID had a role in election interference in the US in 2020 and Indian elections in 2024.
So it could have had a role. There were a lot of bad things that happened in 2020. I think bad things happened in 2024, but it was too big to rig. We won by a tremendous margin.
Welcome back, Patriots, to the Patriot US Report. And before we start today's deep dive, I have some big news. We finally launched Patriot Media Watch.
Oh, wow.
It's a 24/7 live streaming website with, get this, 7 chat rooms.
7.
Yeah, built by the people.
Oh, it's fantastic.
For the people. You can find the link on our website. Okay, let's get right into it.
Right into the news.
Yeah, the news you need to know.
Absolutely.
Today,
What?
we've got 6 stories that highlight just how much the global landscape is shifting. We're talking trade wars brewing, potential alliances forming, and maybe some cracks appearing in places we thought were solid. What do you think?
It's definitely a time of major transitions, and I think understanding these shifts is crucial for all of us.
Exactly. So let's start with something that hits close to home for a lot of Americans.
What's that?
Their wallets. Trump's back with a new trade policy.
Oh, yeah.
This time, it's all about reciprocal tariffs.
Right. Reciprocal tariffs.
Illicit.
So he's proposing that we match the tariffs other countries impose on our goods.
The prices for some things, many things, it could be all things, will go down. Ultimately, will go down.
But remember, if they drop their tariffs, prices for Americans are coming down. Our production's going up and our costs are going down. Remember, it's a two-way street. That's why it's called reciprocal.
So an eye for an eye on the global trade front. What sparked this move?
Well, the source material mentions several countries, like Brazil,
Okay.
India, and even members of the EU,
Yeah, wow.
who have significantly higher tariffs on U.S. products compared to what we charge them.
You know what that reminds me of? That example about motorcycles, India slapping 100% tariff on American bikes while we only charge 2.4% on theirs?
Yeah, a huge difference.
That's outrageous. Is this about fairness? Or is it protectionism in disguise?
That's the million-dollar question. Supporters argue it's about leveling the playing field and boosting American manufacturing.
Right.
And potentially it could help reduce our trade deficit.
Okay.
But
There's always a but.
critics worry it could trigger a trade war,
Oh.
leading to retaliatory tariffs and ultimately higher prices for consumers.
Didn't we see this play out with the Chinese tariffs a few years back?
We did, and American businesses and consumers definitely felt the pinch. So the potential consequences here are pretty significant.
Yeah, definitely something to watch closely. Okay, let's shift gears now to a story that's making waves literally.
Oh, this should be good.
A U.S. aircraft carrier,
Okay.
the USS Harry S. Truman,
I've heard of that one.
collided with a merchant vessel
Oh, no.
near Egypt.
Wow.
Yeah. And while there were thankfully no injuries, this incident raises some serious questions about safety and operational readiness, especially considering the Truman's role in U.S. naval operations
Right.
in the Mediterranean and the Middle East.
High traffic areas.
And it wasn't that long ago that the Truman was involved in a friendly fire incident, right?
Right.
Back in December.
Okay.
An FE-18.
Correct.
Obviously, they're doing a damage assessment right now on the Truman, whether she's going to be able to continue her mission or not. One of the interesting things was the Truman was not broadcasting its international signals on ships have this automated information system where they broadcast. She was not broadcasting at the time. Most Navy vessels don't like to do that, but they do it when they're close in.
It seems there have been 2 notable incidents involving the Truman in just a few months, which definitely warrants further investigation.
You mentioned the Truman's importance in those regions. What kind of impact could this collision have on U.S. operations?
Well, anytime a major asset like an aircraft carrier is damaged, it can disrupt planned operations and require significant resources to repair.
So potentially some headaches for the Navy, but hopefully nothing too disruptive. Now this next story is a bit of a head scratcher.
Oh, really?
It seems Modi over in India is channeling his inner Trump. Even using the phrase, make India great again.
Make India great again. It was a surprising moment during his meeting with Trump. To hear him echoing that MIGA slogan raises a lot of questions.
Is he just buttering Trump up, or is there a genuine ideological alignment there?
It's hard to say for sure. There are definitely some parallels between their nationalist approaches and economic policies, but we also have to consider the strategic context.
What do you mean?
We're going to be doing, I think, record business, record numbers. And we're going to work with India also. We have some very big trade deals to announce in the very near future. Well, there was no role for our deep state. It was, this is something that the Prime Minister has been working on for a long time and has been worked on for hundreds of years, frankly. I've been reading about it. But I will leave Bangladesh to the Prime Minister.
Well, India is becoming an increasingly important player on the global stage.
I see.
And strengthening ties with the U.S. serves both their economic and security interests.
So MIGA aside, what concrete outcomes came from this meeting?
Several key agreements were reached. First, the U.S. agreed to sell F-35 fighter jets to India, a significant boost to their military capability.
Wow, that's a big deal.
It is. They also agreed on the extradition of a suspect in the 2008 Mumbai attacks, demonstrating a united front on counterterrorism. And interestingly, they found common ground on illegal immigration, both advocating for stricter enforcement.
So it seems like this meeting was pretty productive despite the MIGA eyebrow raiser. But is this partnership built to last, or is it all tied to Trump's presence?
That's the big question. How much of this is about a genuine long-term strategic partnership, and how much is about personalities and political expediency? Only time will tell. But for now, it seems like the U.S. and India are finding common ground on several key issues.
A lot to unpack there. But before we go any further, Patriots, I want to remind you to like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Forget.
And we'll be back in a moment with 3 more stories you don't want to miss.
You won't want to miss these.
All right, Patriots, let's jump back into our deep dive with a story that involves 2 figures known for shaking things up.
Well,
Elon Musk
Oh, yeah.
and former President Trump.
This ought to be good.
Yes. It seems Musk has taken on a new role in the Trump administration, heading up the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, as it's being called.
DOGE.
DOGE. Okay, I have to admit that's a pretty clever acronym.
It is.
So what's their mission? To meme their way to a more efficient government.
Well, not exactly. Their focus is on cutting government waste.
Okay.
And they've been busy identifying and canceling federal contracts, claiming millions of dollars in savings.
Sounds good in theory.
JJ. On DOGE and the fraud claims, Elon Musk in the Oval yesterday gave us some information on that. We're just wondering if there's some proof, evidence. Is the White House willing to share evidence of those fraud claims, or can Elon Musk come to the briefing room and share material evidence of what he's talking about?
Sure, I would love for Elon Musk to come to the briefing room. That's why we had him go to the Oval Office yesterday, where I think he provided great answers. He was speaking in layman's terms, speaking common sense to all of you in the media, but also to Americans at home. But I would say especially to all of you in the media, because I think it's a real fallacy that there's this alleged lack of transparency when it comes to DOGE. President Trump and Elon Musk have been incredibly transparent on what DOGE is doing.
Less waste, lower taxes, right? What kind of contracts are we talking about?
A lot of the contracts targeted by DOGE seem to be related to DEI initiatives.
DEI.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
We're talking DEI workshops at Homeland Security Diversity Communications, in the Department of Agriculture, even a Gender X initiative at the Social Security Administration.
DEI cuts. I can already imagine the controversies swirling around that.
You're right. This move has sparked a fierce debate. Supporters are praising Musk and Trump for tackling what they see as unnecessary bureaucracy and wasteful spending. They claim DOGE is exposing fraud and abuse within government agencies. But critics argue that these cuts are too broad, potentially jeopardizing essential programs and disproportionately impacting marginalized communities.
So is this fiscal responsibility or a politically motivated purge? What does your analysis of the source material suggest?
It's difficult to say for sure. There are valid arguments on both sides. Supporters point to specific examples of wasteful spending uncovered by DOGE, while critics highlight the potential negative impacts of these cuts, particularly on vulnerable populations. The source you provided includes a compelling testimony from an angel mom who argues that sanctuary city policies, which the DOJ is challenging, directly led to the death of her child.
Wow.
It really underscores the emotional weight of this issue.
It definitely highlights the complexity of this issue. There's a human cost to consider alongside the economic and political arguments.
Exactly, and it raises the question, where do we draw the line? Which programs are truly essential and which are just bureaucratic bloat? What criteria should we use to make those decisions?
Big questions indeed, and ones that I'm sure our listeners have thoughts on. Okay, moving on to story number 5. This one takes us to New York, where the state's immigration policies are facing a legal challenge from the Justice Department.
Yes. Attorney General Pam Bondi has filed a lawsuit challenging New York's green light law.
Remind us what that law does.
The green light law allows undocumented immigrants to obtain driver's licenses and restricts federal access to DMV records. The DOJ argues that this law hinders law enforcement efforts, puts officers at risk, and violates federal immigration law.
We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment.
So essentially a clash between state and federal authority on the issue of immigration.
Right.
What's New York's response to this lawsuit?
Governor Kathy Hochul has denounced the lawsuit as a politically motivated attack, arguing that federal agencies can already access DMV records with a warrant. She maintains that the law strikes a balance between protecting privacy rights and ensuring public safety, and points to New York's history as a welcoming place for immigrants.
So we have two very different perspectives on this law. One focused on national security and the other on state autonomy and immigrant rights.
It really boils down to how much power states should have to set their own policies, especially when it comes to hot-button issues like immigration.
And with an election year coming up, you can bet this will be a major talking point on both sides of the aisle. Okay, our final story for today takes us back to the courtroom, where we have a high-stakes resignation with potentially far-reaching implications.
Yes, Danielle Sassoon, the top federal prosecutor in Manhattan, has resigned after refusing to drop corruption charges against NYC Mayor Eric Adams.
Whoa, that's a big development. What led to this?
It seems there was pressure from the Justice Department under Bondi's leadership to drop the charges against Adams in exchange for his cooperation on immigration enforcement.
Attorney of the Southern District of New York, Danielle Sassoon, abruptly quitting on Thursday instead of following the Justice Department's order to drop the criminal charges against Mayor Eric Adams. In their memo, the DOJ admitted that they did not assess the evidence in the case, but argued that the indictment distracted Adams from fully focusing on President Donald Trump's immigration policies. While the Justice Department accepted Sassoon's resignation, they also told her that the prosecutors who worked on Adams' case will be placed on administrative leave, and that Sassoon will face an internal investigation, calling her move insubordination.
Sassoon refused, arguing that dismissing the case would set a dangerous precedent and that Adams' team was attempting a quid pro quo, essentially a favor for a favor.
So she's accusing the Justice Department of playing politics with a major corruption case. That's a serious allegation.
It is, and it raises concerns about the balance between prosecutorial independence and political considerations. Sassoon's resignation has thrown the case against Adams into uncertainty and sparked debate about the potential for political interference in the justice system.
What are the potential ramifications of this resignation, both for the case against Adams and for the Justice Department as a whole?
Well, for starters, it's likely to delay the proceedings against Adams and could potentially weaken the prosecution's case. It also casts a shadow over the Justice Department, raising questions about its commitment to impartiality and its willingness to use prosecutorial power for political ends.
Definitely a story we'll be following closely. All right, Patriots, that wraps up our 6 stories for today's deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from trade wars and naval incidents to political alliances and high-stakes legal battles.
It's been a whirlwind of news, and it really highlights the complex and ever-changing landscape we're navigating.
Before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to remind you, Patriots, to like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah, help us get the word out.
Your engagement helps us spread the word and keep these important conversations going.
All right.
Patriots, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From trade wars and potential alliances to government spending and the integrity of our justice system. It seems like every story we discussed points to a world in transition.
Yeah.
A world where the old rules are being challenged and the future is uncertain. What do you think?
It is fascinating how these seemingly disparate stories are actually interconnected. For example, Trump's reciprocal tariffs could have ripple effects on our relationships with countries like India, which is now seeking closer military ties with the U.S. And that "Make India Great Again" slogan, it really makes you think about the global appeal of nationalist rhetoric. Is this a temporary trend tied to Trump, or does it reflect a deeper shift in global politics?
It's definitely a question worth pondering. And then we have Elon Musk and DOGE shaking things up on the home front, taking aim at government waste, but also raising concerns about political motivations and the potential consequences of their actions.
The source material you provided presents a range of viewpoints on this issue.
Oh, yeah.
Some see DOGE as a necessary corrective to bureaucratic bloat, while others view it as a reckless dismantling of essential programs.
I see.
It seems the key question is, where do we draw the line between responsible spending cuts and potentially harmful austerity measures?
It's a debate that requires careful consideration of both the economic and social impacts of these decisions. And speaking of complex issues, that lawsuit against New York's green light law really highlights the ongoing tension between state and federal authority.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to immigration.
It's a classic example of federalism in action,
Right.
with states asserting their right to set their own policies even when they clash with federal law.
Interesting.
And it raises a fundamental question. How do we balance national security concerns with the rights and freedoms of individuals,
Right.
including those who may be undocumented?
It's a delicate balance, and one that we as a nation are still grappling with.
Definitely.
And then there's that shocking resignation of Danielle Sassoon, which, if we connect it to the broader themes we've been discussing, raises concerns about the potential for political interference in the justice system, a cornerstone of our democracy.
Her decision to step down rather than compromise her principles speaks volumes. It underscores the importance of prosecutorial independence and the need to protect our institutions from undue political influence.
This deep dive has uncovered some fascinating connections and raised some important questions.
Absolutely.
What stood out to you the most from what we've discussed today?
For me, it's the interconnectedness of these issues and the realization that we're living in a time of unprecedented change and uncertainty. The decisions we make today, both individually and collectively, will shape the world we live in tomorrow.
That's a powerful thought. It's a reminder that staying informed, thinking critically, and engaging in these conversations is more important now than ever before.
Couldn't agree more.
So Patriots, keep those conversations going. Share your thoughts, connect with like-minded individuals, and be a part of shaping the future you want to see. And until next time, stay strong, stay informed, and God bless America.